New York University campus, Dr. Rogers discussed her theory, The Science of Unitary Human Beings, with Dr. Jacqueline Fawcett.
In 1970, you published your first comprehensive articulation of the abstract conceptual system that's come to be known as the science of unitary human beings. I was wondering what motivated you to do that work and to publish it as a book.
Well, actually, it didn't really start in 1970. I'd had a couple of books before that, Reveille in Nursing, before that, Educational Revolution in Nursing, in which I had introduced some of the ideas, much more embryonic, of course, as far as being motivated to do something. When I came to New York University, on the faculty, I realized very early on that either there had to be something to know in nursing that required higher education for its transmission, or I'd better get out and, run back to public health, which I loved anyway. And I was also concerned with how we got at this in terms of people, because that was where people were. And then I read Everything in Sight, but much of this had started long before that in terms of thinking, because, I can stretch it and say from conception, one wonders, what are people like? What is human development like? What is evolution? What is the world we live in? All of these had relevance for nursing. So that it was really, the motivation was, what did we need to know in order to serve people? Because as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that justifies our existence at all is that there are people out there that can use our services, and I happen to believe that people need knowledgeable nursing, and we had not been providing it.
Since 1970, there have been substantial changes in the science of unitary human beings. We've seen rather marked differences in, or refinements perhaps, of the science now in the Malinsky book. I was wondering what prompted those changes, what motivated you to do the refining or expansion, however you might see it, of the model.
Well, there's no question that there are a number of pages in that 1970 book, if somebody ripped them out, would improve the book. But science is open-ended, and moreover, that book was written, 17, 18 years ago. It's outdated. However, the changes have not been in terms of changing the abstract system or the direction of thinking, but rather that as I thought more and as new knowledge continues to come, because knowledge has accelerated all over the place, and whereas I'm well aware that papers I wrote 20 or 30 years ago are as timely now as they were when I wrote them, sadly enough, there are also now, from one paper to the next, and by this I'm talking about, a week or two, I have to put in new material because knowledge in general is moving so rapidly, so that I would have to say that the basic system that I introduced most formally in 1970, because the others were embryonic, is more substantial now than it's ever been. On the other hand, I'm also aware that there were a lot of errors, some of them because I didn't know any better, some because what I thought I was saying, nobody was interpreting it that way. I would say that it has changed in a developmental sense of greater accuracy, of new knowledge, of elaboration, but that fundamentally the basic concept is still there. You see, in the first place, I identify nursing as basic science. It was a good while before I said that out loud, because, back when I first started this, if I'd go in to give a lecture, the first thing I did was to check how far it was from the floor I was on to the ground, because I never knew when I was going to have to jump. There is no one who has or does study unitary human beings as irreducible energy fields. This is unique to nursing, and certainly if one just starts with Nightingale, the idea of people and their world becomes central to the development of nursing, then of course one does get into definitions and one moves on from there. But the abstract system is essentially a worldview that focuses on people and environment.
In the 1980 edition of the Reel and Roy book, your chapter talks about the science of unitary human beings as an abstract system, and in that same chapter you identify three theories: the theory of accelerating evolution, the theory of paranormal phenomena, and the theory of rhythmic correlates of change. It seems to me that suggests two different levels of abstraction: the abstract conceptual model or system and the more perhaps middle range theory. I was wondering if you see it that way, if you see levels of abstraction.
Theories derive from an abstract system, and one cannot mix theories from one abstract system with theories or findings from another one. So that this itself is an important point. You indicated about Milinski's recent book on explorations. And I think that it's quite important because it's the first time there has ever been a volume published that included basic research in the science of nursing.
You have mentioned in your discussion so far the idea of basic research and the idea of applied research. I wonder if you could explain to us and perhaps give us some examples of the differences between basic and applied research.
Well, oversimplifying, yes, basic research advances knowledge. It brings in new knowledge. Applied research tests knowledge that's already available. And I think good examples of applied research is the studies that are done in relation to nursing practice. Now, there are studies in the science of nursing, science of unitary man, that are going on in many places, not just New York University, and not just in the United States, but in other countries. And I have people send me their work often to critique or look at or yell about, and that's fine.
Would an example of applied research then be a study of, a comparative study perhaps, of two different nursing interventions?
Yes, I would say very much so. I think one of the things, a very common thing that I think is like what you're saying, if one wants to compare two methodologies in terms of intervention, then this would be applied research, and it could be very useful. But applied research depends on basic research. Now, I think one of the things along with this, a worldview or an abstract system that constitutes a body of knowledge for nursing has within it all the potentials for all of the theories that would be manifest in terms of nursing, the practice of nursing. Nursing becomes a noun, meaning the body of knowledge. The practice of nursing is to use that knowledge for human betterment.
Is there enough basic research that we can now do applied research and help us to understand more about nursing interventions and how they influence the well-being of human beings?
I think there's no question about it. There are people who are using it. I think we may make errors, but I don't know any field that doesn't sort of goof up things, or sometimes people misunderstand, but we do have, interestingly enough, a book that is already in process, dealing with the use of this system in terms of, or this reality in terms of human health and welfare.